So we're going to record, and you'll get anyone who signed up will also get a copy of the recording, and eventually it'll be up on the YouTube channel. So we got 30 minutes together. Now we have about 29 minutes together. And here's what we're going to do. I'm Karen Colligan, obviously, and the subject is what's going on with the talent drain and what is it costing the organization? And more importantly, what can we do about it? So I'm here in New York City. That is the first full day of my life in Manhattan, which was on November 12th, 2020. So there I am with a fierce girl. I'd moved from San Francisco and I thought it was pretty appropriate. So people think, what do? We do leadership, we do team, and we do coaching. And our signature program is called Keep It Real Leadership. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. So let's get into it. Leonard, I see you're coming in. Great. Love to have you. So this is just a kind of a timeline of what people think has done since we started in 2000. We've done quite a few different programs. We continue to use these programs throughout. We iterate them and make sure that they're updated according to our clients and what they need. So that's just a little bit about people think. So today, what are we going to do? We're going to talk about the cost of turnover. We're going to talk about how leadership impacts retention. And the numbers are a little startling, and I'm sure some of you have seen them, and we'll show them just to scare you a little bit. And we'll talk about 3 ways to keep employees. So that's what we're going to do today. How are we going to do it? Here's what we're going to do. Again, 30 minutes. I've recorded it. Content and conversation. I will be asking some questions here of you guys. So my hope is you'll be able to lend your voices, mute till you speak. And then when you do speak, just provide your name and be clear and concise. So that's what I'll ask you from a how perspective. So the first question I'll ask, and it's just a couple of you, well, there's 3 of you on here. We're supposed to have some more. We'll see if they show up. Tell me, why are you here? What are you trying to learn? And I have a pen in my hand, so I'm going to write things down. So do tell. Is there a reason you're here in particular?
This is Leonard. I'll go first. I'm always kind of a sponge for information. And anytime I can learn something to help me just be a better leader, maybe get tidbits of, how I can coach people and actually be coachable myself is why I'm here. I'm interested in learning from others.
Good. Marcia, that sounds pretty familiar, right?
That sounds very familiar. I just said that. I can say ditto, because it is so important for us to continue. I'm a coach. I want to keep learning and hearing from other people and sharing what I learn with my clients, and growing as well.
Yeah, we can't stop learning, any of us. Doesn't matter where we are in our career trajectory. No question about that. Thanks, Marcia. Craig, you want to say anything?
Yeah, no, I just kind of get a sense of where the perspective you're seeing in the market, and then internally to our organization. I see a lot of these very common mistakes being made, and I'm kind of looking at it. Okay, maybe there's some things I can do subtly to kind of nudge some people a different direction. Would be probably my perspective on it at this point in time.
Good, love it. All right, let's go. So the question becomes, are you losing top talent because of bad leaders? Okay, so the answer is yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. And then what's it costing the organization? Startling, it's a lot of money. And what I can't get my head around is, how can organizations not be paying attention to it? So when we'll go and we'll look at some of those numbers. I just think this really sums it up. We've all, in leadership roles, we've all had leaders who we work for, and they tell us to do certain things and they don't. And so, you know what? Your actions speak louder than words. There's no question about that. So the numbers are in, and we call it what is it? Great resignation, realignment, the big quit, the wonderful walkout. I mean, there's the revitalization, it's the big quit, it's reframing. I mean, you can call it whatever you want, but at the end of the day, this is the number. I mean, 4 million Americans since July 2021. And in January 2022, 2.8% of the workforce walked out the door. So I don't know. And people go, well, which industry? Oh, it's every industry. Now, hospitality, certainly leads the pack, but it's across the board. It's across the board. And that is a lot of zeros. It's a lot of zeros. So with that said, what does it cost as those people are walking out the door? So here's the number. So there's all different, calculations we can make. And this is the simplest one. It's the average. You can look and you can go down a rabbit hole. At the end of the day, it costs about 1.5 to 2 times the salary to replace one employee. Again, that's a few zeros. So what does that really mean? So if you have an employee, 50 grand they make, you lose one employee. So let's go on the low end of that. Say it's going to cost you about 75 grand to replace. Say you lose 3 employees, and this is very, very common. It's costing the organization $225,000. That's on the low end. So these numbers should rattle people. I mean, I don't understand how these numbers are not rattling people. And people say, well, why are people leaving? Because they can. And because then when they look over, my friend is leaving and he or she just got an increase and he or she just got stock and I'm not. And no, so it's happening. So my question to you is, what are some of the reasons that it costs 1.5 to 2 times? What are some of those pieces that incorporate that 1.5 to 2 times the salary to replace an employee? Anybody want to guess?
I say both time and the cost of retraining, first finding someone, then retraining someone, then having training the person and that's being hired and the person who's doing the training and the person who's supervising the person who's doing the training. All of those things sort of go into that process and then getting them up to speed.
Yeah, absolutely, Marcia. Anybody else?
Well, you got the cost to recruit, and then you've got the cost. You're probably not going to hire them at the same rate of the person that just left. So there's going to be a upcharge on that.
Yeah, exactly. And so some of the things that I put up here. So decreased productivity. Think about it. I'm thinking about leaving. So do you think that I'm going to be at my best at 100% productivity? Absolutely not. During this whole time and then after. So decreased productivity for a significant amount of time. Potential decreased revenue generation. I mean, Craig, we talked about this before. You're in sales. You walk out the door, your sales team, your sales member walks out the door. That's decreased revenue, which then could impact customer attrition. I mean, customers get attached to people. And so if they go to a competitor, might be a long sales cycle, but you never know what could happen. Knowledge loss. I mean, it's like, what happens to the intellectual capital that's walking out the door? Very rarely is it saved. So that's a piece of this. Marcia, you had talked about the recruiting cost, what it costs to fill a vacant position. You said, Craig, it's probably going to cost them more. The onboarding costs, what's that going to cost them? The training costs, what's that going to cost them? And then the lowered morale. And that's what we kind of touched base before. People are going to say, well, wait a minute. Why did Karen leave? Oh, look at that opportunity. And then all of a sudden their morale goes down. And then all of a sudden it's decreased productivity. And this is where that starts. And then before you know it, it's kind of over. So those are just some of what it takes. And then, the average person to get up to speed in a role, it takes 6 to 9 months. So even if you have a body the next day in that seat, it's going to take 6 to 9 months, depending on the complexity of the role, the expertise you need to have. That's long. If it takes 3 months, that's a long time. So it's a big number. It's a lot of zeros are there. So how is bad leadership impacting the business? So these numbers are, I think, startling. So again, Craig, you and I talked about this a little bit before, but the number is 47% of new leaders never get any leadership training. It's like, what? And then 63% of people, employees that have a bad leader are thinking about leaving. So you think about the number we just talked about, 1.5 to 2 times. And then you think 63% of your employee base are thinking, I really don't like how that person's leading me. Nah, they're kind of crappy. I'm going to leave. And you know what? They should. So when we think about this number here, 47%. So I'm a great salesperson. I'm going to get promoted. Now I'm a sales leader. Okay, great. Not going to give me training. Oh, okay. I have 5 team members, salespeople. What am I going to do? I'm going to have learned from osmosis. What if my leader that whose position I'm now taking over was a crummy leader? So I'm going to perpetuate bad habits. What if I don't spend any time thinking about who I am as a leader? What if I don't spend any time thinking about how I'm going to lead the organization? What if I get so busy that I'm not having those leadership conversations with my team? I mean, I could go on and on about why this number scares the daylights out of me, to say nothing of why that number shouldn't scare the daylights out of anybody. So, comments about those numbers or anything we've talked about so far? Yeah. And what's frightening about that is, you know, what you indicated, Leonard, it was a cascading effect. I mean, you were not the only one. And if we go back to the zeros and the 1.5 times 2, and I'm sure you made a little bit more than 50 grand a year, that really number should be scary to people. And it's not, because everybody's moving so fast, like, oh, got to do this, we got to do this, check, 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 that nobody's breathing and nobody's thinking. And that's what we need our leaders to do, is step back, breathe, and start thinking again. So,
Karen, I was just going to add to that with leaders, and I'm talking to, I coach both employees and I'm also coaching organizations. And what I say to those organizations, and I'm sure I have some bad leaders that listen to me and think, doesn't affect them, but I say that it affects the company reputation as well, because everyone knows someone else, and they go home and talk about what a terrible boss they had, what a terrible company they had. And what I say to organizations is, go back and look at your own mission statement. And see who's following through. It may be the CEO that may be thinking everything is going just fine, but that most organizations, leaders are busy being busy.
yes.
So busy gets glorified.
Yeah.
You know, so
Like
versus
I said, they
production.
need to think. They need to stop and think. Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely, Marcia. Yeah, absolutely. All righty. So, you know, I think we've just obviously confirmed this. People join organizations and they leave bad leaders. There's no question about it. So here's what has to happen if we're going to try and retain our top talent. We have to train leaders. They have to be trained early and often. I mean, think about it. You're bringing your child to a pediatrician. Do you want them not to be trained? Oh, I read some books. Oh, you know, I'll figure it out. No, you go to your state attorney. Do you want them? Oh, I think I know how to do a will. I looked it up on the internet. No big deal. I mean, it's kind of the same concept. Leadership is a set of competencies, and it's not willy-nilly. It's not like, oh, I'll just osmosis, I'll figure it out. No, you really won't. With leaders, you have to have clarity around, who am I? What are my values? What do I stand for? What don't I stand for? Oh, I got to be able to put the stake in the ground. What am I great at? What do I suck at? And, what is my purpose statement? How am I going to put that hat on and be able to let my employees know this is who I am as a leader? And therefore, I have boundaries. And you know what? My expectation is that you will pay attention to those boundaries. And then, of course, to go back to what all three of you were talking about earlier, it's continuous learning. You have to continue to learn and be curious, because as soon as we stop learning, it's over. It's over. So there's many, many ways to keep employees. And here's what I really believe are the top things when we start looking at how to keep employees. The first thing is there has to be clarity of values, not only from the leadership perspective, but the organization perspective. We have to make sure that the culture is very intentional, because that's what you recruit to, the culture. And then obviously you have to have strong leadership in place who live the values, build the culture, and recruit towards that. So this is what I say, people join an organization because of values, and people leave an organization because of values. Now, Craig and I worked for the same organization. I left that organization for this exact statement. So I know it's true. I coach a lot of people. I'm in a lot of organizations. I know this is true. When my values are aligned with an organization, bingo. As soon as this starts happening and I start thinking, what's going on here? How can I sleep at night? I need to make sure there's an alignment there. So very, very important to be clear about values. So culture. So does anybody want to describe what culture is in their words? Like, what do you think a company culture? Give me the definition.
I think inclusiveness, collaboration. I think those are all good for good cultures in an organization.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else want to just definition?
Add trust to that.
Yeah. So when you think about culture, it's really the personality of the organization. And that's what we have to understand. What are those values? Is it, trust? Let us all please hope so. And how do we make sure that we are integrating what those values are into the organization? So, clarity, of course, of who you are as a leader. The vision and mission are understood by all. And I don't mean it's up on the wall. I mean that you can internalize it and walk around, and really, if I interviewed people would be really on target. They might use different words to explain it, but they're clear why they're there. Leaders at all levels are aligned. And I don't know about any of you on this call. However, there is some silo stuff that goes on in organizations. Leaders need to be aligned so that the individual performers can continue to align with them. And then obviously the values, everybody knows on this call how I feel about that. And there has to be a consistent communication about what the culture is. And it goes back to that first saying I said, you have to be able to look at somebody and that they behave exactly what comes out of their mouth. So that there has to be a reason to stay. I want to look at my leaders. I want to know that they're not kidding. And then this is how you recruit. And then you have to re-recruit people. Don't forget that. Just because somebody's in an organization, Leonard, I'll go to you, and we don't have to talk about this out loud, but you know what? Someone in that organization should have tried to re-recruit you to make sure that you were happy. And, I always talk about stay interviews. And if you're a leader, you should be talking to your people and saying, tell me what you need. Tell me how you're doing. Tell me what's going on in your life. Give them a reason to stay with career growth. Because if I have a reason to grow and I look over there and I look over there and everybody's leaving, see everybody later. I need you to pay some attention to me.
Mm-hmm.
So then when you think about strong leadership, what you want to think about in an organization is, what's your definition? So I do a leadership podcast. I have 28 that are on YouTube. the first question I ask each leader, and they're in every industry and all different levels of industry, is what is your definition of leadership? And every single one of them is different. Cool. I'm good with that, as long as you know what it is. And everybody in your organization knows. Your leaders are respected, and people, not only do they want to stay, they want to join, because there's nothing harder these days than recruiting top talent. No. There's nothing harder these days than recruiting. Forget even if they're top talent. So you want people who understand the culture. Do you have bench strength? A lot of organizations don't. No, they don't. Leaders are really clear. This is my lane. That's your lane. We're going to collaborate and make sure that we don't bump into each other and we help each other grow. But I understand what I need to do. And this goes back to that functional silo. You know, you don't want people to go, oh, this is my business, it's not your business, and I don't care about your business. Yeah, no, you really need to, because it's all about the business. And you know what? If you don't reward your strong leaders, shame on you. I mean, that's just the end of the day. And you know what? You got to get the bad leaders out. Because if people are looking around going, what is he or she still doing here? When they lead, and or they don't lead, get them out. You know, out of here. Really important. And of course, a strong leadership program to grow talent. I mean, that's just what's going to be important for any organization, so that everybody can then go back and have a similar definition for your organization. What is it? Yeah. Okay. And of course, continuous learning always. So we have 5 minutes left. Oh, career growth, got to have career growth, but we've talked about that a little bit before. So today, top talent's walking out the door. So what do we know? We now know the cost of turnover. We know now how leadership impacts retention, and it's frightening. And we now have 3 ways to keep employees. Are there many other ways to keep employees? Of course there are. We had 30 minutes together. So with that said, I'm just going to tell you a little bit, keep it real leadership. This is a new session that starts June 16th. This is for new leaders, and it goes over 4 months, 3 modules over 4 months. So that's just a little bit about the Keep It Real program. Again, I'm on YouTube. I've got 28 of them in the pocket. It's just, some of them are, well, no, they're just, I've learned so much from those podcasts. So next steps are set up a call with me if you want to talk leadership. I have an organizational assessment, happy to go through it with you. Really be thinking about your organization and the brand strength they might have. We'll follow up with a recording from today's webinar. If you know anyone who's interested in Keep It Real, of course, send them my way, June 16th. Take what you learned today and do something positive with the information, and lead. So that's what I have to say. So let's wrap it up. And if I love this saying, I was at a conference. Look at that saying. Is that the most hilarious saying ever? If you call yourself a leader and no one is following you, you are just going for a walk.
Oh, I love that.
Isn't that the best, Leonard? I know.
I love it.
Yeah, so we got 4 minutes. So let's just debrief what you learned today. And we'll ask each of you. Erin, you just came in, so you don't have to speak if you don't want to. But Marcia, Craig, Leonard, please do tell us.
No, it confirms a lot of the observations, and it just, like I said, having gone through had the opportunity to go through lots of leadership training, I'm still a little baffled on. Yeah. I think companies want someone else to train their leaders, which where you and I came from, that was kind of the training ground for a lot of companies. And I would have thought a couple other companies would have put emphasis on leadership training, and the last 2 I've been to really haven't. It's been crazy.
It's crazy. I know. Marcia, what'd you learn?
I agree. I just think that training is so vitally important, and that people take it for granted. people get rewarded and promoted based on something that they've done well that may have nothing to do with working with people. It's sort of doing a project well and you're getting promoted for it.
Yeah.
The thing that caught my eye, and I tend to forget that when I'm talking to clients, and I will add that back on again, is talking about reviewing and going over your bench strength.
Mhm.
It's something, I'm always so busy talking about the people who are leaders now and making sure that they sort of rise to the occasion. But work with that next group and sort of looking at your bench strength and helping those people, even if they're not ready for promotion at this time, to be leaders. My thought is the first person you lead is yourself.
Yeah, of course.
So if you're not doing it well, if you're not having a good time, if you're not doing what you need to do for yourself, then there's no way you should be promoted to a leader.
Agree. Thank you, Marcia. Leonard, you got anything in the last minute here?
Yeah, pretty much what Craig and Marcia said, but I know as I move on, and one of the things is, I'm gonna pay a really good attention to, especially as hopefully this thing builds up to where I'm going into, a leadership role where I'm running everything, is, having a clear culture, beliefs, values, goals, attitude, all of those things that you mentioned. The one thing that I don't understand, and I guess you could probably talk about this another day, is when, companies, have leaders, but yet everyone that reports to them is walking out the door. I would think that would show leadership to, hey, what's going on? Why are all these people leaving who report to a certain person? I think that says a lot. And I don't know what the answers are, but that would be something I'd like to learn.
Yeah. Leonard, I couldn't teach that. I mean, it's just it's mind boggling to me. It's like a duh moment for me. So
Yeah.
we can talk offline about that. And then Erin, do you want to say anything? I know you came in a little bit late.
I was about 5 minutes late, but I think culture, the thing that really resonates with me is culture is so important.
Yeah.
And I also find the concept of stay meetings really interesting. I just had a report tell me that he's never worked in a different industry, and so he loves us, but obviously wants different experiences, and I don't know how to offer that to him. So that's just rattling around in my head. I'm like, okay, well, how do I keep him around?
Yeah. So Erin, my recommendation is do a stay interview and ask him. Ask, what do you need from me? Don't put it on yourself as a leader. Let him have some responsibility in his growth plan as well.
Yep, that's smart. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, all, I don't want to take you any longer. We said 30 minutes. I took you to 31. I'm a rotten facilitator, I am. So everybody have a great rest of your day. Happy weekend, and we'll all be in touch. Thanks a million.
Thanks, everyone. Nice to meet you. Thanks, Karen.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.